cruise, whatever cruise for my 40th. I was sitting there, no, that can't.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Union County Board of Education to order. April the 28th at 6 o'clock. Ha ha. I'd also like to call for a moment of silence now, if we might. Thank you. And now if we'll all stand for the pledge. If I can find the... I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I would like a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
I have a second. Was Ms. Harrell, I believe. All those in favor? Aye. And we can go straight to the superintendent's proposed budget if we wish. Number 5, moving right along. Dan, I know it says 30 minutes, but if you could just keep it to 5, please. I'd like to.
Oh, my God.
Thought maybe we'd have a little fun, but I guess not.
Not a problem. Yes, though, it is. Just to give you kind of a briefing of what has transpired, the budget proposal, the superintendent's budget proposal, by now it would have been done. It would have been last month that you actually got it. We strive to get that in the board meeting. It would be usually April's board meeting. Well, we didn't have anything from the state at that point. We didn't have any planning allotments from DPI. We didn't have the governor's budget this year. Well, the finance committee decided, time out, we have to look at local market conditions, and they did that, but we don't know what the state's doing yet. So what happened was the calendar was adjusted, the budget preparation calendar was adjusted to hopefully get some news from the governor. Well, about a couple weeks ago, we got some planning allotments from the state, which pretty much were flat. I think we're going to get an additional 5 or 6 teachers for our 354 student growth. But other than that, it's flat out flat. Might get some additional instructional material supplies. But all those planning allotments that were weak to begin with, meaning we didn't get them all, we just got certain categories of planning allotments. That was from DPI. And so therefore we were sitting there waiting on, okay, well, what's the governor going to do? Well, I was all happy on last Thursday, I think, when I didn't think we were going to get a governor's budget to be able to do anything with it. However, then I heard on Friday, oh, the governor's going to release his budget on Wednesday. So that Wednesday came around 11:30, 12 o'clock. Yesterday morning, we got the governor's budget. So my staff and I, and that's kind of Miss McLam, Miss Mills, and I, and Brenda, last minute, put all this together. And what we tried to do was incorporate what we believe the state's going to do based on what the governor is planning on in his budget. But of course, you have to remember, it also goes to the House, it goes to the Senate, and then it also ultimately goes to a conferee that finalizes the state budget. So what you're seeing here is primarily based on the governor's rendition of the budget, governor's requested budget, and known facts about the local market. So with that said, what I did do is pass
Can I
out.
ask you a question there just for a minute? The governor's proposed budget,
Yes, sir.
which is the highlights that we have here and which you have a copy of, how many times, as long as you have been finance officer, has the governor's budget become the state budget?
Zero.
Okay.
There's always tweaks in the
Wanted
House
to
and
make that clear
Senate.
in one sentence. It clarifies a lot of what you said.
Right.
It's got to go through a lot of steps.
So it does go through a lot of steps. You know, I would say last year's governor's budget was a basis for what happened in the end. But yes, it did change in the House and Senate to reflect budgetary needs. One that comes to mind, the governor said, we're not funding driver's ed. Well, they didn't fund it out of the general fund. They funded it out of other dollars. So yes, the governor's budget prevailed on that line item, but the House and Senate and conferees came together to find it from a different place.
Yet by state law, our budget has to be finalized by May the 15th. Am I correct?
That's right. The superintendent's budget proposal, which is what you have now and what you'll start with Tuesday at your board meeting, is the superintendent proposal that is due to the public and to you, not even in a public meeting, but by May 1st. So what we'll do tonight, hopefully, is learn more about what the superintendent is recommending based on local needs and what we foresee or what we're hearing about coming out of the state. And I did say local needs as well. Now, the Board of Education may want to tweak this. And what we want here is all those kind of ideas. So we're ready to tweak it so that when you talk about it Tuesday, it becomes your budget and you adopt the Board of Education's proposed budget that must be to the county commissioners by May 15th.
And in the 4 o'clock Finance Committee meeting, there were changes that were discussed by the Finance Committee to bring forward to the board tonight. When we talk about it, I guess we'll do that when we get to those portions.
That's fair. Okay, so I don't know what I can say to you about the education highlights. First of all, the governor's budget for education, which includes K-12 education, includes college and universities. It was a total of 2 pages long, and it focused on increasing teacher salaries, increasing principal salaries, increasing AP salaries, and also giving our non-certified employees a raise, bonus and or funds for I think it says a well-deserved bonus. So that was the focus of the governor's budget. There is some funding. Well, there's funding for growth for the 354 students that we're expected to get. We should get a proportionate share of that growth money. And then there also is some instructional material and supply dollars. And certainly you can see the other items, but the focus was on increasing compensation across pretty much all employee categories. So if we could then, we'll jump right into the superintendent's proposed budget. And what you have is the budget executive summary. And that pretty much explains, where we're at, why we need the money. And once again, it tells the community what we're focusing on. As you all know, but the Board of Education, the superintendent, the whole school system is focusing on high achieving and globally competitive students, quality teachers, administrators, and staff, safe, orderly, and caring schools, 21st century operating effectively and efficiently, and family, business, and community support. And as you can see through some of this wording here, we are going to grow to 42,278. It does talk about the scenario of increasing charter school student enrollment growth being greater than our growth percentages. And it also shows the focus on compensation for teachers, principals, assistant principals, and other non-certified people as well. So to some degree, the proposed superintendent budget takes into account what we believe the state budget ultimately will be, and puts a local market emphasis on certain categories where we're having trouble retaining and or potentially recruiting teachers and or other hard to fill employee categories. And unless Dr. Ellis or Ms. Morris want to add to that, that's the focus of the budget. And we did try hard to anticipate what the state's going to do and add that local market issue to the superintendent's proposal. Okay, being no questions, you have a couple bar charts, and what we were trying to show here is that Union County Public Schools average and projected average daily membership, ADM. As you all know, we were gangbuster growing for years. Well, we're still growing, and being a large county, that 1.55% or 1.83% or 1.56, or in this year's case, 0.84%, less than 1% growth, still represents a significant amount of students over time. This year, the growth is 354 projected by DPI, and that is less than 1% or 0.84% growth. The next sheet shows how charter schools have grown over time, and they're growing a whole lot faster than we are. And you can see that they've grown 8.8% in 11-12, 2.8% in 12-13, 13-14, almost 5%, 14-15, 9%, 15-16, almost 7%. Next year is the kicker, where they're expected to grow nearly 50%. And that is because of primarily the two charter schools that are expected to open with over 900 students in them. So with that said, what we have next is the proposed county appropriation. And in 15-16, we got $91,922,668. And if you look at Exhibit A, it shows you where that money's spent. And the county has asked for that documentation several different ways. We're going to give it to them every way they ask for it. But essentially, Exhibit A goes over what we're spending the $91 million right this year on. Yes, sir.
I think as we move through here, there were some discussions that came out of the Finance Committee regarding this particular document.
Yes.
That the committee wanted to make some suggestions on making some changes. and wanted to bring that to the full board for your review. The suggestions were in the next item is coming up here, the local costs and state legislative payments to charter schools. That, along with a couple of others here, are line items that basically are combining a governor proposed increase, and it's coupled right now with what we're doing at local. And the suggestion that came out of committee was to separate these items. So it was clear that if the governor is making a recommendation at the state level for increases, it will impact us at the local level. So we want to make sure that the county commissioners know this is what's coming out of the state. And we have locally funded teachers and principals. And we want to make sure that it was clear that those line items are what the governor is looking to do and what we were looking to do locally for, as far as supplements and such. So the items that in question,
Sir,
sorry?
the first one is not. The
Oh,
two
you're right.
point, the
You're right.
2.9 is not. That's a
You're right.
local expenditure. I just wanted to make sure you didn't go there before you went there.
That's
Yeah,
correct. I'm
okay,
sorry about that.
no problem.
I'm sorry, you're right. That's right. The items in question are further down. It's what governor's proposed. It's the fifth item down for the 4.6 million, and the last item on the sheet, the 1.4, and on sheet 2, the first item. I'm sorry, Mr. Karpinski, I jumped the gun.
Yeah, not a problem. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that that $2.9 million will be a local expenditure if the growth pans out like DPI expects it to, and we only grow 354 students, and the 16, soon to be 18 charter schools that we fund with local county appropriation dollars grow 49.8, I believe 82%. So that growth is what causes a significant increase because they get their proportionate share. Nice round number off the top of my head. Every student that goes to one of those charters that is a resident Union County student, it's about $2,100. Nice round number. Don't hold me to that, but over $2,000 for sure. Then the utility cost increases, they're going to happen. They based on trends and based on what we see happening in the utility markets. We just had a consultant in to come and look at bills of ours, and the utilities, one of our biggest expense, of course, is electric. That drives a lot of this, but we're expecting approximately a 5% increase in utilities across the board. Increased state retirement contribution. The state has given us a number, well, at least it's in the governor's budget, what that retirement rate's going to be, and that's going to cost the locally paid employees to have an increase in that contribution rate, and that's going to cost the Board of Education almost $69,000.
We were going to also, the Finance Committee also mentioned,
That's right.
just notating that it was,
Right.
no, please.
No, that this was also part of the, it was also a line item that came directly from the governor's budget.
That's
we wanted
correct.
to make sure that it was notated in here that it isn't yet. but
Yeah,
wanna make sure it's clear.
it's not. That was coming out of committee
That's
where
right.
they would like that line item to say something to the effect of increased state retirement contribution for locally paid employees per governor's recommended budget.
Correct.
So anytime we can say something like that, we will. As you can see, the charter school payment is based on law. By law, GS 115C 218.105, we must pass those on to them. The utility increases, that's just utility companies sending us bigger bills. The state retirement contribution increase is based on the governor's budget, and we will note that. The next item is where we're going to break it down into what the governor budget cost us versus what we need for local teachers supplement closer to surrounding markets. So we will break that out. That's what's being recommended from the finance committee. So if that's the pleasure of the board, we will do that, and we'll get that to you with any other changes that you all might have tonight or next Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Dan, which line were you?
The 4,620,000
Okay.
needs to be broken out by what's governor and what's local.
We see that as two items.
That'll be 2 items, yes.
And part of it is an increase to the base salary of the teacher per the state, and the other part is what we're asking for is an increase in supplement.
Yes, sir.
And to be totally honest, we had it broken out, and then we looked at the language that the governor had in his budget and determined to emulate that. And then it would, we're going to go back if it's the pleasure of the finance committee recommended it. So certainly we're happy to go back and put that in as separate items.
Dan, are you using the governor's proposed 5% pay increase for teachers in figuring his part?
That 5% is a
Little
little bit
optimistic?
weak. Weak meaning that, well, the way they get to 5% is they're going to give a $5,000 bonus to teachers at the top of the scale.
Mhm.
Well, I'll never see that on the local level because I'm not paying those higher paid teachers. So we incorporated what portion of the governor's budget is going to impact and the local market conditions. So we're going to break that $4.6 million or parts thereof out. But that average is just that, an average when you consider all the raises. Some impact the local budget, some don't. And who knows if it'll happen or not.
So what percentage does that break out to be?
There's no way of determining that
All right.
based on, well, you see the education highlights,
Okay.
and we looked at the budget. Their line item is a big bucket for the whole state, and it doesn't break it out like you're asking.
And I want to correct what I just said. I think we combined 1 through 5 and then put 6 and 7 together in the governor's budget. So I want to rectify. I want to make sure I clarified that because I said
I
that
think it
incorrectly.
was 1 through 5 and 7 and 8, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Ellis. The 6 is DPI, I think.
Right, the 6, the state agency. You're right, 1 through 5, and then 7 and 8.
Yes. Okay, very good. So we'll break that out and go from there. The next one is totally a local initiative. We give high priority supplements to the tune of 1,750. We're going to increase, the superintendent would like to increase that to 3,500, and the cost of that is $1,943,000.
A historical perspective there, before the economic downturn, we were doing $2,000 for each one. And then the economic downturn also for our nationally board certified teachers. And the economic downturn, we cut out several things and cut those back to $1,500. And I think year before last, the board brought it back up to $1,750, and we are bleeding teachers at some of those high priority schools. 2 schools have in excess of 20 vacancies already. And so this was in our principals, elementary, middle, and high priority and non-high priority. Their first order of business for every level was to increase the supplement for teachers at high priority schools.
Does this include non-licensed, like your teacher assistants?
No, this is certified classroom teachers.
How about school counselors?
It would be anybody paid on the teacher, and I'm looking at Dan
Schedule.
because
You
he's got.
sent me that sheet, I think, once of who qualifies.
Right, I think yes, sir, we did. There was like 8 or 9 different categories that receive the teacher supplement. It would be anyone who receives the teacher supplement.
Okay, so that's what that is. Essentially, it's very hard to teach and be in those schools. And I think Dr. Ellis would say that it's more about retention than recruiting. We almost, a lot of times we have to say, you got to go there. I don't know if you call that recruiting, but retention is what we're trying to do there.
Well, we hire teachers and then we hire teachers again the next year. Then we hire teachers again the next year to go there. And if we could retain some of them to stay there, and $3,500 is not a lot of money, but it's double $1,750.
Okay, and next one will be broken out. There is a governor portion of this. In fact, the first two statements in that paragraph, if you will, are based on the governor's budget, requested budget, and the last one is a local initiative that we will break out for you all. And then if there's no question, any other further questions on page 1, page 2, once again, this is the third one that needs to be broken out. And you can see the last starter that says, and local market compensation adjustments. But the rest of it is the 3% bonus for locally paid employees. And that would include all your non-certified people that aren't teachers, principals, assistant principals, or any. So that's a catch-all for all other non-certified employees.
Does that include bus drivers, after school, cafeterias, janitors?
Yes, sir.
Go all the way down the line.
Yes, sir.
And for hourly employees, you take what?
It'd be prorated.
Okay. Will it be the same 3% for a full-time? I mean, considered because you got some bus drivers that are considered part-time employees, is it going to be like the one-time bonus was last year, it was prorated?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, of course, I say that sitting here with limited information, but that's what I believe will happen. If the past is any indication of how that would be handled, it would be handled on a pro rata basis. Then we have increased local principal supplement. That is a local initiative, period. And we've looked at our market compared to others, and you have a lot of documentation that we'll go over very soon to show you how we're out of market.
And we do have multiple principals interviewing and finalists for jobs in other counties. They've contacted me and I've written, and not only me, but multiple are finalists in other counties for principal and or other positions.
Is that solely because of, not solely, but is the money the main driving force for that? Or do you know that feedback?
I think there'll probably be 53 answers if there are 53 principals, sir. I can't, I'm not.
Oh, sure.
I think change is scary for some people, number one, but I think I can do a lot for change if I know my pocketbook's going to be better off. So I would say money would be the primary reasoning, but then you'd have to, I'm not going to say that with any degree of definitiveness. If it is career enhancement, I heard what you said, Mr. Sides. You know, a couple of them are interviewing for a position in another county that it is a career move up the ladder, and you can't blame them.
I was more asking the people who are going from principal to principal, teacher to teacher. It wasn't a step up. It was just a step somewhere else.
Well, it's more money. Yeah, in every location, it's more money. And also, for full disclosure, not this past budget, but the budget before, the board did pass, and the county commissioners, we took the money and the board approved. I think each principal got a $5,374 whatever adjustment, but that still left us a lot shy of it. But that was done 2 years ago, and that's the first thing that's been done for principals, as far as I know, in probably, I won't say 15 years. You've been doing it that long, but I don't remember an adjustment as a principal the whole time I was or afterwards.
That was one of the the adjustments to principals that hasn't happened in quite some time. I don't know the exact number of years, but that's correct. Maintenance, safety, inspections, painting, supplies, materials, you know, as time goes on, things wear out, things get more expensive, and that's just a small amount of dollars for various things that are listed. Local coaching supplements, the same thing. That is a local initiative. Our athletic director looked at markets, provided detail, and that's the 202 needed to get our coaching supplements closer to surrounding markets. And if you know anything about athletics, these people run around from district to district more than any other category. And that's, you know, if we're talking about 14% teacher movement for various reasons, this category is even higher. And then digital, traditional content and curriculum, that's where we're headed. That came out of the finance committee to start with. And Dr. Jones did some work on what he thought we needed most in that arena. And that's primarily going to be focusing on the elementary level for the $315,000. And Dr. Jones, I don't know if he wants to add to that.
Could you tell us the full board what he told the finance?
Dr. Jones, would you step forward and please share with the full board what you shared with finance? Thank you.
Good evening. In looking at digital resources and materials for students, early reading to support students, as well as literacy materials at the elementary level, we feel with textbook funds and other funds we've used, we have good coverage in our high schools and our middle schools, but there is a need for supporting books that are leveled and work with our students in our balanced literacy programs. So this would be used for accessing books for reading and instruction.
Dr. Jones, is
Yes,
this
sir.
where the RAS kids
Yes, sir.
come into
That
play
is
as well?
one. That is one of those. Yes, sir. To where you actually will have access to the digital books that are leveled.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is the correct category, but yesterday I had an opportunity to attend Leadership Day at Indian Trail Elementary School. And previously I spent 3 days in training in my continuing education with a program called Leader in Me, which is based on the 7 Habits of Effective People, and by Dr. Stephen Covey. And if anyone's visited Indian Trail Elementary School, Dr. Boatwright's got it going on. And I had made a specific request because I know there's a considerable number of folks from Benton Heights Elementary School that had attended the same training as I, and there were several more at Leadership Day at Indian Trail yesterday. So I wanted to find out if that request I made, if that's been taken into consideration in that line item as well.
That request, I worked with Ms. Trawick, the principal at Benton Heights, and she is using a variety of funding sources to do that. It is, no, that $315,000 does not include $50,000 or $60,000 for Leader in Me, but she is doing that through other different
Title
pots
I
of money.
associated other funds
Right,
without
a
any
little
loss of
here and a little
positions.
there.
All right.
And
Okay.
it is, so she is well on her way, I believe. Mr. Baston, she's working with your department some in that. And so that is, and it's not all paid, Mr. Size, as I understand it, in one budget. So, you know, it's going to be over multiple budgets, and she's been working with Mr. Karpansky. So we believe we have that covered.
They have the funds committed or available for commitment over multiple years.
Yes.
We feel that's a stable funding source.
Yes.
Okay.
I have no reason to believe, well,
All right.
unless North Carolina loses all federal
Right.
funding for HB2 and Title IX.
Or that-
But
they're not a
absent
Title
that,
I
I
school.
think will, right.
Great. That's what I wanted to hear.
I have a question. Dr. Jones, do you know what percentage is actually going to hard text versus digital?
And out of textbook funds, we have been looking at the high school biology as a need. For example, for our biology adoption, which is about $200,000, that they sell adoptions with books and digital that come together in a package. And we have that for the next 10 years. So we've been able, so you can look at, if we also look at the middle school level and it's going to be a math book, we're looking at the math book that also has the complement of a digital. So it might be a classroom set, but there's also the digital copy for the student.
We also do the books from a variety of funding. We use the textbook account, obviously.
Yes.
And then we use other pots of money to make sure, I know Canvas, our LMS, and how much does that cost us, John? Is it
It's
$160,000?
$3.70 a student, provided through a state contract, about $160,000.
So some of the stuff is really non-negotiable. It's got to come out.
That's right.
Yeah, so what this is they have the about 1.2 million from the state that they're using, and this 315 is on top of that.
Do we anticipate that same, maybe Dan?
That's what he
Is
said.
that anticipated the same in
Yes.
next year's budget?
It is a contract over the years.
No,
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
talking about the state commitment of textbook funds. Does it look like it's going to hit the same, around the same numbers?
It does. Once again, textbooks are a little different as well. They don't come through the general fund state budget. They're funded otherwise, but our understanding is there's an effort towards additional funds for textbooks and or digital to get prepared for 2017-18.
And there is a talk even, excuse me, of an additional up to $10 million statewide to be distributed among LEAs. Well, when we did the math, that's not a whole lot for us. But going back to a few years ago during the economic downturn, we were getting $300,000 and $400,000, and you can't. High school, college, and career promise eats up in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because college books can change every semester. So now with this 1.2 million, we're finally being able to begin recouping, and that's the text that Dr. Jones was talking about in middle school and high school. And this 315,000 will also address the needs at the elementary school.
And we've mentioned this, and we talked about this in finance. If you look at number 13 on the education highlights, it mentions Lead the Nation in School Technology, talks about lottery funds to implement the digital learning plan. Dan, you'd mentioned, I just kind of want to read it, you'd mentioned that we will get an ADM formula amount of that as well. Correct?
That's correct.
And that's not included in the 315. The 315 was truly the Finance Committee's recommendation that we add in money for additional traditional and digital.
Well, we may or we may not, because it's infrastructure. And there are school districts, very poor school districts, that don't have a dime in, they're working on infrastructure. It says, leads the nation in networking infrastructure for schools, acquire digital content and instructional sources. So we'll get part of that money, but we may not get infrastructure money. But we will get the resource money for the digital.
Content.
The content,
Yes.
yes. But we will not be a candidate for the infrastructure money, I don't think.
And luckily, you guys have been very proactive in
We've been working on that since
Our infrastructure.
2005, 6. That's when, long time ago, and I'm looking at Rita out there, long time ago, we've been working on that.
We spoke at Porter Ridge when we had the regional meeting. The gentleman from the Friday Institute was actually there and was. And I
Dr. Glenn Kleiman,
Yeah, I see the
yes,
Friday Institute mentioned
Yeah.
here because they're
Yeah.
the ones going to be implementing the digital roadmap for North Carolina.
they are.
He did mention that Union County was leaps and bounds ahead of the majority of school districts from an infrastructure standpoint.
Yep. And we leveraged our E-rate and some other federal money to, yeah. Sorry, Dan, excuse me.
So that particular item is solely a local initiative. This is nothing to do with the state's doing. If in fact we are entitled to get some of those dollars for that infrastructure, we'll go after it. And certainly the digital content should help us as well. So with that said, as I said earlier in the meeting, we got a county appropriation of $91,922,668. Add the increases to that, the proposed county appropriation for 16-17 would be $107,284,924. And if I could, certainly if there's comments, I'll take them now, but some of the next slides kind of show you where we're at in terms of our current expense funding, and you've seen these earlier. Now you have them in your packet, and we'll put them up for the public to look at. Exhibit A, as Shauna put up on the screen, that shows you what we're spending our money on by object. It's cut and dry, pretty much telling you what those things are, and it gives you the original budget, any transfers that you all made during the year, which are minimal, and then of course the current budget, and that all adds up to the $91,922,668. The next, well, the slide after the current expense is the top academic LEA per pupil expenditures. Like I said, these schools were pulled for their performance, not their dollars. And based on performance, you can see that some of our top performing schools, of which Union County is in North Carolina, you see that Chapel Hill spends over $11,000 per pupil per year. Mooresville City, being on the lower end of that, spends nearly $8,000, and Union County spends $7,779 per student, which is only 27, nearly 28% coming from local. The other dollars are coming from state and federal. So that shows you how other top performings get funded, where the money's coming from, and if in fact this was just based on, hey, who does great in North Carolina, and nothing to do with dollars, but that's where we fell on a per pupil amount of current expense. The next graph shows you averages. North Carolina state average, they spend about $8,300 per student per LEA. We spend $7,779 per pupil. And then if you look at national average, there's, I guess Chapel Hill is trying to catch the national average at 11,000. So they're being competitive with the nation, apparently. Then we get into, these are local supplements for teachers. And you can see that Fort Mills local supplement is near $6,300. Rock Hills is $5,200. Lancaster $4,900. CMS is $5,500, and we're at $3,300. That's why there's an emphasis on getting our local supplement up to surrounding markets, because that's where we're losing our people too. If they're good and they decide to bolt, we lose them.
Hey, Dan?
Yes.
I know that you were going to be breaking these out for us, but when it comes to that local supplement, I know you had it together and apart and all that. Do you recall what the supplement was, if I was to write it down for that line item?
The supplement amount?
Yes, for this particular line item for the local supplements for instance, the teachers. I know right now you have them on this item combined.
I don't have
I
that.
just didn't know if you had. Okay. That's
I don't have it
Okay.
right here and now, but yeah, okay. That is based on the 5-year teacher. The next graph shows you based on the 10-year teacher, you know, anywhere from Fort Mill, $7,600 or $6,700, excuse me. Charlotte Mac, $6,000, us, $3,800. So you can see how that local supplement can attract some of our teachers somewhere else. Same thing with 15-year teachers. The Fort Mill is $7,300, Rock Hill $6,100, Lancaster $6,100, CMS $6,700, and then Union County at $4,000. So that's what we're after, trying to correct. Now we move on to the next slide, which is high school principals. Once again, we're competing with these same areas. We came up with a market average, and it shows that our high school principals are out of market by about $7,000. It shows that our middle school on the next slide is out a lot more than that. And elementary principals are out by about the same, I guess, as middle school. So What we are trying to do in a local budget is not get this all at once. We're trying to do this over a year, or excuse me, a couple or 3 years. So if we were to put these numbers totally on the page, they'd be a lot bigger than when we break it out and show you that local component. We'd rather get it a little bit at a time than throw out a big number that just gets kicked out.
I think that's important for us when we do talk to the county commissioners, that we tell them, Dr. Ellis, you mentioned this in our last finance committee meeting like a month ago, that we talk to them about this is maybe a 3-year plan to get up. We're not asking for the full, chunk right now. We're saying, hey, give us a little bit this year, give us a little bit next year, give us a little bit the third year to really kind of step it up.
Right. And for teachers, we're considering next year, year 2, because we did get 2.5 million last year. We all know what happened this year. So it is even stated in the language that this would be year 2 of the plan, and then we'd have a year 3 as well. So to some degree, you're playing catch up. There's a lag. What we tried to do is get the best data we could for 15, 16. I think we have that, but we're not going to be able to catch up all at once, but we're trying to get there in all these categories.
Well, and we're also aiming at a moving target in all these other districts.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir. And that was part of the logic of combining the numbers. And there's logic in combining, logic in not combining them. But yes, there's going to be that state forced unfunded mandate from the state. And then there's going to be the local effort to get to where we need to be, but we're just not going to be able to get there overnight. Assistant principals are so far out of whack. That's a statewide problem. There's people in the classroom that make more than assistant principals right now. So they're so far out of market. We're working towards getting them there. So you can see the numbers for yourself. Yes.
As Union County attempts to get closer to market, will the other people who are so far above Union County keep going?
And that's what I think Mr. Collins was alluding to. We go up a little bit, but somebody else, some other finance officers saying the same thing to their board, that they need more funding as well. So we may get some, but some of these others will get some. So you're chasing as hard as you can to get to market. We know we can't do it all in 1 year, but we're going to try our best to get closer to market while the market's still moving. And elementary principals, I'm sorry that these numbers are pretty blurry, but assistant principals, yeah, there's about a $10,000 delta on that, if I can read that scrunched up. Now, we were crunching numbers so hard I can't read them. So I apologize. Oh, we were scrunching them. I told you to crunch them. Yeah. So if we can, we'd like to entertain current expense questions, comments, concerns. We will, based on the board finance committee's recommendation, it sounds like the will of the board is to break those out. We will do that. If it's a local component or a local effort, we'll indicate it's such. If it's a state mandate, or we believe it's going to be a state mandate, we'll break that out as well. If it's law, I think the one that's law, of course, is the charter school law. But other than that, we're prepared to do anything the board would desires in terms of any changes, because this is the superintendent's budget. Come Tuesday night, it will become the Board of Education budget, and we hope to have all these tweaks done. In your board packets, you're going to still see the superintendent's budget, because I got to get it to Donna Malarkey by 9 in the morning. There are some adjustments, even just spelling errors in this, that we'll fix tonight, get it to Donna tomorrow. But then if I can get something out Monday that'll be more representative of the breakout, That way you can have something to start making your own.
I'm not sure Dan made that as clear as I'll make it. Sometime between now and tomorrow night, board members, if you have some changes to make to this, that as you peruse this, please get them to the appropriate staff person, Mr. Karpinski, and let him look at it.
And those would be non-substantive changes. I think
Right.
if there's a substantive change, like breaking that out, which we'll do, it's my understanding the board wants us to do that. We will do that.
And
But-
I think you'll take those marching orders from facilities, from what or finance, I'm sorry, from finance. Those we went through there before. I better not go there again. But there will be some board members, I'm sure, that have, after looking at it, have some questions about it. And I would suggest putting those in Mr. Karpinski's hands as soon as possible.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
Well, I've got one right away, but I'll be glad to email you tomorrow. On the second page of the average 3% bonus for locally paid employees, other employees, non-licensed, I would like to see the cost of a actual hourly pay increase rather than a bonus. Because if you take the 3% bonus and then it gets whacked because they're part-time, it isn't going to be enough after taxes and benefits are through to mount to a hill of beans.
Absolutely,
And I'm
sir.
specifically thinking of bus drivers because we have some, that seems to be on the top of my list these days. And we have some vacancies. And I know I get some pretty regular feedback when I go to pick up my son from school. And I know that those bonuses were not a overall enticement that seemed to really stick. I think it would be much more effective if we could put together a significant, and I don't want to talk about one particular class of non-licensed employees versus others, but I'd like to see some alternative costs, and I can get with you on some numbers and see what that would do in the mix.
Well, Mr. Karpinski or Mr. Sides, I think that particular line item, just to be clear, the bonus is a state bonus.
Yes,
and a local
the
bonus,
state
right?
is the bonus.
So it's a state bonus. Now, in there is also, we're looking to ask for supplemental increases.
And that's where we're looking that's where we're looking at market for all of the non-certified to see where we need to make adjustments. That would come in the and, Mr. Sides, where it says
And local market compensation adjustments.
Right, that's exactly
right.
right.
That, right. We're breaking that into 2 line items.
Gotcha. Will you be able to be more specific as far as what you're talking about at local market compensation adjustments before the budget is approved?
Would that not have to be dependent upon how much we get from the county commissioners? Because if we put out, let's just say,
We might get nothing. Well, yeah, you're going to have to match. But I'm just, in this particular number that you placed here, the 2.4 million, I'd like to know what kind of market compensation adjustment you're talking about. I know we had the issue with the IT employees being off market. I assume that's
the tradesmen in finance, when I say tradesmen, like HVAC.
Right,
and, you know,
right,
different
tradesmen, yeah.
certification.
Yeah. I assume that's also included in this as far as compensation market adjustments?
Yes, the way the breakout is, and I was just hand signing my assistant here. We changed this number last minute. We were trying to be fair to not over ask the county, but the breakout here is 3% for a bonus and 2% for market adjustments. That local market adjustment will be 2/5 of that, and the bonus is 3/5 of that number. That's what we intend to break out as per the committee. Now, we're also doing a study to see what categories of people get a market adjustment and who might not.
Some may not get a market adjustment of that 2%, and some may get the lion's share. I don't.
And that market adjustment is not a bonus, right? That
would be
No, that would be an
ongoing.
ongoing.
right. So I think it's just critical to say, because I know Mr. Side, you were asking the bonus versus not. Part of it's the bonus, part of it is
The state part is the
ongoing.
bonus. The local part is ongoing.
That's why it was important to break it out so you can actually see it all.
I guess my question is, if you've used 2% as a baseline for the compensation adjustment in certain classes of employees, that may, like tradesmen, what have you, that may not be enough.
That's right. And I think what Dr. Ellis was trying to say is some employee groups might get 0% of that local market adjustment. Some might get 3%. Some might get 4%. So we're looking at those ranges.
Can you, between now and next Tuesday, can you supply me with some kind of spreadsheet breakdown of what do you anticipate for the different classes or the different employee classifications?
I would
How much
doubt
adjustment?
that.
I'm sorry?
I would doubt that because we've still got staff looking at different categories, trying to see.
We're not there yet.
No, we're
Okay.
not there yet.
All right, okay.
We are working on that, but that's a lot of different comparisons with different groups.
So it might be appropriate to offer any suggestions of what those market compensations might be as far as giving my 2 cents, if you will?
Certainly, but knowing that if it's just 2% that's got to go among all non-certified work groups,
Right.
But of course, the teacher pay raise, I don't, that may be pie in the sky, the supplement. So, that would be.
Well,
fine.
I guess part of my question would be, I don't know how much of a dollar effect, say $1 an hour pay increase would be to that class of employees, because I don't know how that would spread out. See what I'm saying?
Right.
I might suggest, okay, let's bump up their salary $2 an hour. And that turns out to be X, which is way too much. You see what I'm saying? I don't have a baseline to go by.
I know exactly what you're saying. It's dynamic, but we know there's certain categories. For instance, maybe HVAC or electricians, licensed people, especially when the economy's booming. They can go and work for other people. They can own their own businesses, what have you. So those people might be heavily weighted. They might be in that 3-4% category. When I started this process, didn't know that the state was going to possibly give a 3% bonus. The number on the page, if you go look at the number on the page from last time we presented the superintendent's budget, it was actually 6%. So now it's 5%. And after looking at some of this, we might have to go up to 3 and 3, bonus and 3. So that's the difficulty, but that might be something we would want to consider as a board.
And if the way it's been done in the recent past couple years is the agreement that the working group came together with from the Board of County Commissioners and the school board, was that it would be based on, I know I'm going to say this wrong, the Urban Consumer Price Index.
It's the Consumer Price Index for urban consumers, but that is not the problem with market. Inflation is very low right now, and the primary reason inflation is low is because gas prices have stayed tanked for quite some time, which impacted the last 12 months of that Consumer Price Index for urban users. So that's not it. It's not a matter of money for that, because if you look at it for the last 12 months, that's at 0.1%, very low. What this is categories of employees that are out of market, just like our teachers are out of market for the area. Well, when I look at market, if the county has a technology technician, they have a certain range. Our range is lower than that. The county is a competitor of ours, but that kind of drives market too. What the county's paying, what the city's paying.
It's supply and demand.
That's
If there's higher
exactly
demand
it.
for that profession, you got to pay more or you're not going to get the folks.
That's right. So the areas we've been looking at, we're trying to look at all of them, but we are looking at certainly the facility areas for those technical licensed people. We're looking at, of course, child nutrition after school as it applies. If need be, we're looking at the transportation division. We're looking at maintenance
Clerical.
division, clerical,
Maintenance,
everything.
All of the non-certified divisions.
So it's a big job to say, okay, are they in the range of the market or not in range of the market? But some categories of people are obvious that they're out of market. And, you know, I hate to say it, but I think, you know, Dr. Ellis and I didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about this. We talked about combining what the state's doing with the local component of it, but this probably should be 3% bonus and 3% market adjustment. And I would offer that to the board for consideration, because in that fury of combining them, I had to think about the bottom line and what's feasible. But if you're telling me to break it out, I would recommend the 3% state bonus and 3% market adjustment, which would up this number by about 480,000 or something like that.
That would be the 3% for certain work groups, which you mentioned is not going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Correct.
Certainly we could add a percent, but if we do, that's an extra $400,000. That would come in with the board's budget. That's certainly doable.
That are in high demand out in the marketplace. We're going to have to pay more, or we're going to have to figure out a way to sub it out to the private sector. If we can't hire the folks to do the job, we're going to have to go out and pay the market rate to have the work done, one way or the other.
We did a study 4 years ago, and we found that it was more cost effective for us to do in-house. As a matter of fact, I had a candidate tell you the company I've come in to look at outsourcing maintenance, and we could do it about 60 cents per child cheaper than they could, or per square foot, whatever the total was. That was 2, 3, no, almost. Yeah, it was mowing, it was ground landscaping, maintenance. It was hiring, taking the place of our custodial staff. It was the whole, right, larger districts, the economy of size, they can buy in bulk and do it cheaper than. As a matter of fact, I think we found we could save the county about $27,000 a year mowing, but by statute, we can't do that. But that we were able to do that cheaper than the county was doing it at that point in time. I think I remember that, yeah. So we've looked at all that, but I certainly think if you guys are not all nodding your head or by consensus, whatever, say make it 6%.
And I was going to say, can we do that by consensus, or do we want a motion on the floor?
Well, I'm kind of trying to get through the flat percentage, because I'm trying to dig deeper and look at specific jobs where we're farther out of whack from the marketplace than others. And so I kind of hesitate giving a flat percentage until I see how, I mean, coming up with the money to bring, let's say, 4 IT techs up to market is a lot, cumulatively, is a lot less dollar-wise than it would be to, say, get 20 janitors up to marketplace. I'm talking about market adjustments.
Didn't we talk about a market adjustment, and that was based on, we have certain groups of employees
Right.
that are well below the market,
Right.
and they would get the bulk of that, whereas the ones that are already at market or above market would not.
They would just get the state bonus.
Right, but until I see that deeper, I don't know if 6% is enough. How would you know unless you know where the need is by specific employee type? I mean, 6% it sounds like a good number.
Well, it's not 6%. Let me make sure maybe I didn't say that clearly enough. The state bonus is 3%. Every non-certified person would get that, period. You don't have to match it, no. You have to pay for it with local dollars, because those are locally paid people. Yeah. Yes, sir. Because the state won't pay for custodians. The state doesn't pay for all of our technology people. The state doesn't pay for HVAC or electricians or plumbers. So there are certain categories of employee that the state won't pay for, but since they're quote unquote locally paid state employees, we will be forced to give them the bonus, which is great. They deserve the bonus. The other 3% or 2%, whatever that number ends up being, would go to categories of employees that truly need a market adjustment. And we're honing in on that, but without dollars in hand, there's some categories you're never going to get there. I can say right now, people walk out of the technology division and make 50 grand more than we're paying them now. Well, 1 or 2 or 3 people aren't going to get that much money no matter what it is, if it's 1%, 2%, or 3%. So staff is working hard on that. And whether it's 2% or 3%, we're going to use that money wisely to make sure we get the people we have to compete for up to where they need to be.
It's the same premise as what we're doing with our certified, that whatever percent we get, we'll do, I would love to get 10% for our non-certified. But realistically, I think that the thought of, spreading it out over a few years' time, sort of like we're talking about with our certified, that would probably, I would hope that would go farther with the folks who are going to receive the budget than a 6 or 10% one time. I think the board saw how that went last year.
So do we want to increase that? Is that what the board wants to do, Mr. Chair?
And we can change it again. I mean, this budget is a living, breathing document, and we can change it again. But from what I'm hearing, 2% by the time we finish all our market adjustments is probably not going to be anywhere near enough to get everyone to market value with their adjustments.
I don't think you're going to get every person in Union County Public Schools to market in this year.
With 2%, right. So we're looking at this the same as we're looking at principals and assistant principals and everything, and bring it up over 2 or 3 years. So maybe we should stay at a 2% level and see where that brings us, and look at the figures at the end of the year and decide what we're going to do with our next budget. See if we're coming closer. If we're not, we're going to have to move a little bit more. I mean, we're not going to have an unlimited budget from the commissioners or anybody else. So I know what we'd like to have, but what do we need?
Every percent, if you will, costs $483,000. I think I mentioned that round number earlier. So you'd have a little less than $1 million to deal with the local market adjustment. Right.
I want to give a little historical perspective too for, I think some of you.
If I could stop you just one second while this is fresh on my mind. Dan, are you saying that if we go from 2% to 3%, we're looking at roughly $483,000?
Yes, sir.
More? Okay. I just want to.
Yes.
In 2014, I believe it was, we got a true up from the county commissioners. And we got $749,000. Every penny of that went to our non-certified folks. I believe that averaged maybe a 1.6 or something. I could not tell you what it was. And then we have done 2 or 3 times a percent or a 1.6 or something.
1.6 was COLA last year, cost of living adjustment, because that's when inflation was higher.
But we have made a concerted effort in every budget, and those of you who've been here, Mr. Collins, you had seen it over an 11-year span, but in the past 4 years, we've made a concerted effort with the non-certified to try to get more money for them in each budget.
If you took that 967,000, I'm trying to put this in perspective where perspective might be twisted, but I'll do it anyways. If you divide that by the number of non-certified people, you might be talking about $450. So That's what 2% buys you on average. Of course, that would change because some might get none of that and some might get double that or triple that or what have you. You know, a 6% market adjustment isn't going to be unrealistic for certain categories of people. It's a difficult task. You're not going to eat the elephant whole, understood, and that's up to the pleasure of the board.
So we talked about having the teachers over like 3 years. If we were looking at doing the non-certified like over a 3-year period, to get them where we need to get them, should we go from a 2 to 3% just to make sure we're kind of spreading that over the course of 3 years? Just kind of.
Well, if we did 2% a year, that would be 6% overall for the next, 3 years.
Right, what does that get us closer to where we need to be, or does it need to be 3%?
And that's the problem. Every category of people, same thing we talked about with the certified people. As we do market adjustments, the rest of the world's doing market adjustments. And it depends on the supply and demand of that particular job.
How many non-certified employees did you say we had?
Approximately 2,000.
2,000.
That's across all
Right.
Divisions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, I've been waiting for someone to offer something up here so we can block this little impasse.
Well, as we look at the current expense, local current expense, that there are a lot of items here that we don't have any flexibility on when it comes to these line items of charter schools and payments. I mean, really what we have control over is supplements and a couple of other things, but it's small relatively to everything else. Wanting to make sure that everybody gets something, and of course, whether it's 2 or 3, in some cases that might make a big difference. I think the line item that Dr. Ellis talked about earlier when it comes to our priority teachers, I really think that's an important line item that I wouldn't want to see that type of thing hit because we increased 1% somewhere else.
Okay, then, the superintendent's budget will prevail on that amount, it sounds like, and I'll break out that into 2%, 3%. State portion will be the 3%. Local portion will be 2%. Okay.
And I'm gonna email you tomorrow if I remember a couple particular scenarios. If we took it from here to here, not percentage, but in hourly wage.
That'd be great. Any data you
Crank that
have.
and just look what that looks like.
Thank you. I mean, we're looking at salary.com, we're looking at the county ranges, we're looking at the city ranges, we're looking at market values for, all the surrounding counties. As much data as we can get, we're taking. It's a lot to sift through, but we've started to hone in on certain categories that are obvious. And if we only have 2% to work with, which is fine, we're going to hit the highlights of the obvious first and then go from there.
So what you're saying with 2% is you're going to have a pot of money for local market compensation adjustments of about $1 million.
Yeah, 900 and
Yeah.
Yep.
Roughly. And you got to figure out how to spread that amongst 2,000 employees.
correct.
Okay.
But more than likely will not be every employee.
Right.
That we
Right.
have to take these 2 categories this time, and then next year goes the next 2.
Right.
That's what we've done. Like, we've tried for a couple of years to get coaches a supplement increase. We finally got ADs, and now coaches are next in line, so.
Right,
the same
right.
price.
We can't get to you this year as much as we'd like or at all. We're making a commitment that we're going to address it next year.
And this is different this year because in the past, it's been a cost of living for non-certified. But what we're talking about here, I'll make sure everybody's understanding, is that the bonus from the state and then this 2%, let's say it would go to get closer to market, areas that are not. So it would not be everybody getting a pay raise.
Dan, is it possible to, maybe I'm thinking out loud on camera. But anyway, I was thinking you must have some kind of, and I don't know if priority is the right way to do it, but kind of ranking the different classes of non-certified and ranking them from worst as far as being the greatest need, but being the farthest out of market rate.
We're getting
is that-
there. What you have is ranges for a specific job.
Yeah.
So you have a grade level, and we don't really have necessarily grade levels, but we have to get there eventually. You know, an IT technician is a grade level 58, and that pays from 58,000 to 88,000. Just throwing numbers and titles out of the air. Well, if our technicians are on a salary schedule that only pays them 48 to 54, obviously they're within range, but they have to be at the top of the scale to be within the range.
Right.
So you got to
They're the
slide them.
farthest out of whack. From
You got to
market.
slide them into
I
the
got you.
range,
I got you.
farther into that range. Thank you. Okay, so unless there's questions, we'll go into the capital outlay proposal. And if you don't mind, I'm going to recap. I think what I've heard the board say, they are in step with the finance committee to break out local versus state mandated versus local proposals, if you will. And I think that's the primary change. Right, I have here increased state retirement contributions for locally paid employees per governor's requested budget, if that works. So I think with those four changes, we'll get to where the board wants us to be on that. Very good. The next section is the capital outlay proposal. And we have the 1617 proposal. Just a couple things that are housekeeping, if you will. We did notice after it was printed that in the legend, deferred is spelled wrong. We got too many F's in there. And not enough R's, so. Okay, very good. So we got a couple spelling errors to correct there. I think preventative is maybe changed a little bit. We kept it. Yeah, that's fine. But at any rate, if there are any other semantics, let us know. But we did notice those after it went to print. Essentially, what you see is the acquisition of real property construction, and that is the deferred year one projects and year two of the CCEP, and that document is next in line in your packet. So if you go to the next 5 pages, I think it is, you'll see that $20,497,461 is detailed project by project to add up to that $20,497,461. The next line item, which we have about 75% of the details on, is that $2,102,181. In your packet after that CCEP year two, you'll see a document that adds up to $1,552,000. The two pieces that are missing from that document that we'll complete is furniture and equipment for $300,000 and transportation equipment / vehicles. Sometimes you have to buy equipment like lifts and other equipment. Sometimes you're buying vehicles, but that $250 seems about the average spend per year. So if you add that $550 to that $1,552,000, that's how you get to the $2,102,000. We'll add that to the schedule. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So it's $300 for furniture and equipment, and 250 for transportation equipment. Scope and market driven adjustments, that number is just for bidding purposes. Some projects are greater than, we've seen it all year long. Some projects come in high, some projects come in low, and sometimes you don't have to have enough to do it because scope creep or market adjustments. So that is a number that until you start bidding this stuff out, you won't know what you're dealing with, but that's what that is. And then the ongoing emerging needs, preventative maintenance, capital outlay, that's the $2 million that probably caused all the emerging needs problems. We didn't get it. We don't know what schools is going to have an HVAC unit break, or we don't know what schools are going to have electrical problems. We don't know when a sewer is going to back up. There's just so many things we don't know until they happen, and that's why we need a block of dollars. And we had thought we had an agreement with the county that that $2 million was reasonable. It didn't happen last year, and you know what kind of fun we had this year with that. And then the last item, the estimated brick and mortar projects to be included in the bond referendum.
Maybe I missed it when I was getting this other document. You're going to break out past years of ongoing emerging needs just so people can see kind of what the projects were, right? In the back. Like, remember we mentioned that?
We talked about it in finance, but I think Dr. Webb was going to he'll provide it to Dan. It'll go in your
I
packet.
just want to make sure
Yes.
everybody else heard
Yes.
that. That way they can see that, yes, we do get things. And these are the kind
What
of
we
projects
spent on
get.
I think it's 1.9 something million we've spent this year in emerging needs, and we'll get that.
Which
Dan.
kicked out items from year one that become part of year two, and it keeps on rolling. Right. We'll provide that list.
He's going to provide Dan with a list of the emerging needs, and then of that list, which ones that we had dollars to, okay.
Could I
And
ask you
that-
about the transportation figure, the 250,000?
Yes, sir.
Is that acquisition of new buses?
It could be buses and or equipment, lifts, big tow trucks, what have you, any and all type of vehicles, apparatus, equipment that is capital that will last a long time.
Do you have a specific list of what you want to acquire, or are you just looking at it for a number?
I, right now, just have a number that's supported by a statement from Transportation Division
And I'm
that is
looking
in
at
flux.
Mr. Baisden, what do you have? I know we're doing 5 replacement buses.
Yes, ma'am, and with our consultant has made us aware, well, it's something that we've been doing. There's a credit exchange program also, and it appears, and this is what we're working on, it appears that we're in a position now where we can exchange up to 8 buses just with the state and rotate them through. And right now it is Mr. Burns' belief that that will put us well ahead of where we need to be, and we potentially will not have to purchase buses.
So is it possible to, I'm sorry, Mr. Childs, go ahead. You had follow up.
Well, I was just going to say, so that means you take one of our more used buses and trade it for somebody else's less used buses instead of going out and buying a brand new one, and you get a bigger bang for your buck. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, I don't
Is that how
know all the
works?
details. I can't answer specific questions about it. This is, we've used the term emerging needs. This is an emerging situation that Mr. Burns and I worked on just this week. So my comments to Mr. Karpinski this week when he asked us was, right now it appears that we can exchange existing buses with newer buses and might not need to add buses beyond the 5 that we're getting from the state to this year's budget.
No, but it's not having to go out and buy a brand spanking.
That is
new one
correct.
At what, 80 grand a pop? Something like that?
84 grand.
84
Yes, sir.
grand.
And we will be getting 5 new buses
Okay.
that we're trading, that with the second go-round with the state.
Yes, yes,
And the
those
two-
have been ordered and are on their way.
So
But certainly we could provide a list of the 250,000, a breakdown for that.
Absolutely.
So we get lucky, we might be able to get, let's say, 2 gently used buses for our 80 grand versus going out and buying one brand new one for 84 grand. If in the concept you're talking about.
Potentially, yes, sir. But again, there's parts about this I haven't learned yet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the thing to me, I mean, is let's make sure, I know we for the 20 million, we've got the CCP plan behind it. The technology, when we're gonna update this to include it to 2.1, you know, anything we can have to show exactly what the money's being spent, or as far as the preventative maintenance, the ongoing, where we show past years what we've done, because I know you can't show an actual project list because you don't know what they're gonna be yet, but at least show, hey, this is what we've averaged every year. Any kind of those exhibits are important, so we can, everything's backed up.
And how many, I was talking to Michelle about another form. How many, another thing, how many years did you just say?
Yeah, emerging,
Uh-huh.
2 or 3, whatever we've got.
Dr. Webb, 2 or 3 years?
I know I've got, last year's at hand, I pushed the button in the morning at 7:30 for.
2 years.
So I'll have to go back and look, we base it on an average.
Okay.
I'll see what I can pull together for you.
I would just caution the board on that 250,000, for instance. Buses take 18 months to order. So I need to have money in hand next year if I want a bus 18 months from when I ordered the darn thing. So even though we may not need that bus next year, that doesn't matter. If I'm going to order it next year, I need the money so that I can order it to get it 18 months from then, excuse me. It just takes that long to get a bus. They don't build them till you order them, plus you're in like the state waiting list to get a bus. And then they create a state lease. It's complex. We lease to buy, but you don't see that as board members. You just think you're paying that $88,000, but you're.
So what you're saying is we don't go down, kick the tires, negotiate the price and drive it home that day. Right.
That's correct. No, sir. So that's the problem with where we're at in the transportation division right now. Right now, we're in the middle of flux. We got some consultants looking at things. He did tell me we could use some equipment. He said he didn't need buses next year, but what does he need the following year? So that's why I caution the board to say we need that, but it's one of those things where you can't buy it unless you have the money, because I can't pre-audit it. You know all that.
Dan, I know we were adding new cameras to our buses 100 at a time. Is that factored into the $250,000 for transportation equipment?
It is not. No, it's not.
So where is the camera money for the buses?
We've been paying for that out of transportation current expense dollars.
Okay.
And we did buy a round of cameras last year. We'll take that budgeted line item that will be there next year and buy more cameras. That's an ongoing thing because I think we're on probably a 5-year rotation basis. Those cameras just don't last as long as the bus does. And we do have current expense dollars in the budget for that.
That was one of the things that during the economic downturn, it was just one of the things that did not get reordered. And we've got 300 and plus some buses. We've done 100. After July 1, do another 100 and then do the third 100.
You're welcome. So to recap, you have the detail for the 220,497,000. We'll add the 300 and the 250 to that technology schedule that's in your packets for the 1,552,000. The 600,000 and the 2 million do not have details because we don't know what's going to break, but we will provide a picture of the past.
Is it possible, I know we're going to do an average of for the 2 million preventative, do we have information just to show kind of how we've been hit by scope adjustments in the past years that we can put in there as well?
We would have
$600,000.
the overages, but on roofing, the county commissioners already know that. Of course, we could put it in a document. But certainly we would know, we could look at that based on the 2008 facilities needs survey. I'm looking at Don now.
We have that, Dr. Ellis. The county receives that on our spreadsheet that we provide monthly anyway.
But the overages that
Whether they get the actual price, so they know what we estimated.
but I think he's talking about what we anticipated the price to be and then the actual overage. Is that on there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So,
I think it'd be a great exhibit to include in there, just so we can say, this is again, on average, what we're getting from the scope of this. Since we're asking for $600,000, I'd like to at least have an exhibit saying what's been in the past couple of years, just like we're going to do for ongoing.
We certainly will, but I think staff is already getting that, but this will be to go to the commissioners. Is that right?
that is correct, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me add on to his question. So have we done any work to update the cost figures on the CCP plan year 2 that we're including for that 20 million? Or are we building our fudge factor in with the scope adjustment? So if our scope adjustment gets kicked out again, we're going to be in trouble because the 20 million are 2009 numbers or wherever they came from. Is that fair to say? Or have we tried to update our numbers and true them up?
Those are the best
Same
numbers that we
numbers.
have at the time. There's
Okay.
some numbers that you've seen. The biggest scope adjustment that we've really seen were the roofing projects, because you just don't know what you don't know until you get down to the roof decking itself, especially in those TPO roofs. But we're just about through all those projects. We will have some roofing in next year for about $3 million, I think, approximately.
What about on the capital budget, what about the projects that are left over from this year? The Benton Heights major renovation and the IP backbone that were in this year's capital budget that are yet to, or basically in limbo?
The money's there. I think from what I understand, the commissioners have offered to potentially move money from the IP
To the
platform
Benton
to the Benton Heights project. So the Board of Education has to make a decision. Do we want to start the IP platform? You have the right to do that. Or do you want to talk to the commissioners about moving it to the Benton Heights project? Or what? But we need to make a decision.
Will be the focus of discussion at our May facilities committee meetings that go to June, because the IP cameras was always going to be a summer project.
Right.
And obviously, decisions would be made or recommendation to the full board at your June meeting, and we move forward from there.
Even if we transferred the money from the IP backbone to the major renovation at Benton Heights, if I remember my numbers correctly, that's still not enough to complete the project and have a little cushion. Wasn't it like 3.5 we needed?
We were estimating 3.5. I think that would give us around 3.2
So
maybe.
3, yeah.
3.1.
So we still may not be there.
And we really don't know. Hopefully we'd be pretty close.
And we still have the issue of emerging needs for this fiscal year till June 30th to get through. And we're about tapped out on our money that we were given the ability, what was 2.5 that we had the ability to use, and including the sewer system at New Salem?
Yes, sir, Mr. Sykes. We are tapped out. Matter of fact, the facilities committee will have to, I think they're short about $127,000 with projects that you must do. Remember at the presentation, I think we were at Border Ridge, where I said these were non-negotiable projects you must move forward on. You're going to, the facilities committee and the full board will have to grapple with where's that additional money going to come from to finish those non-negotiable projects.
Will that be coming to us on Tuesday? No, you're not going to have another facilities meeting by Tuesday.
In June.
In June?
Yes, sir. And that'll give us we should have a great idea or a better idea of if we have any emerging issues that come up the month of May. We really had very fortunate in April.
Yeah,
We're still right around $1.9 million in emerging needs. So hopefully knock on wood, or particle board somewhere there, and hopefully we stay under that $2 million.
Okay. How's it, well, I've got you. How's it going on the New Salem project, the sewer system?
We'll have to discuss that in closed session
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, I believe when we talked about the IP project platform and the Benton Heights, I think everybody was copied on the electronic letter that came from the commissioners, or is that not so? Well, I just want to refresh our minds on that. I did get a hard copy of that from Mr. Rushing, Chairman Rushing, and he said if the information that he's got from Dr. Webb is correct, in that the IP platform if it's not completed, it does not compromise our safety at this point, then he thought that the commissioners would be supportive of transferring the current fund from the IP project to complete the Benton Heights project. They went no further than that as far as stating if there was money left or whether we could begin the IP platform or not this summer. So that would be something we could talk about in facilities too.
Correct. If the facilities and the full board move in this direction, you will have to add the IP cameras into your capital budget for the upcoming year. I would also, again, we will discuss New Salem sewer in closed session, but you would have to go into that year knowing if you had any savings from the New Salem project to ensure that you could complete a project. Again, Dan talks about periodically. In case it really was the 3.5 instead of that 3.132.
So something's going to have to go in there. Either Benton Heights is going to have to go into next year, or the IP cameras are going to have to go into next year. But it's not here now.
No, they're both. It's capital. It carries over to next year. We haven't started, and the money's still there.
But if we move all the IP money to Benton Heights, then we're going to have to add IP to this, and this budget is due.
Just because we move the money doesn't mean the need has gone away.
That's my point.
Right.
So
they couldn't hear
Right, that's what I brought up in the
should we
facility.
put the IP camera in here, or some? I mean, we got to put something in here, because if we don't, and we send this budget, we approve it on Tuesday, and now we move the IP money over, and now we're short. How much is IP? 1.2.
1.2.
We need to add another 1.2.
That would be correct, Mr. Martin.
1307.
That's what I said.
So
So
1.2 is just
this budget's not-
platforms.
Well,
But
if you're saying even if we combined the IP backbone with the 1.8 that was allotted for the Benton Heights, we still don't have the 3.5. So we couldn't do it anyway. So we're still stuck.
Be very tight.
It would be very tight. Again, and we've shared this. So
Well, that's an old building. You get into that thing, and I can promise you're going to find, I mean, I'm not a contractor, but you're going to find something else.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong.
No, sir. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. So I would loan to be a little bit on the upside. I don't think it'd be fun to go back to the county commissioners halfway through the job and say, oops, we found this.
And that's what scope and marketed, that 600,000 might help with.
And as I shared, the board would have to know that if you were to have any savings in the New Salem Elementary School project, that it would have to be diverted to the Benton Heights project.
Can I just stop us for a minute? I've noticed we're losing people here and there. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Will that be okay? Thank you. You're not gonna talk long. We gotta get him. We'll see.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, we're missing Dan right now.
Mr. Chairman, I know we're not going to conduct business at this meeting as a work session. I assume we can't make motions and do business. But I would like to propose that we put on the agenda for Tuesday night's board meeting that we move forward with the IP backbone upgrade. 2 reasons. We know no matter if we do the combination as the commissioner suggested, we still don't have a safety factor of enough funding to finish the major Benton Heights project. Number 2, the IP backbone project is time sensitive in that we want to do it during the summer when school's out, and there's a, 2-month period it takes to order the equipment. So I think we're in a good window where we can knock that. We know we've got the money for that one. Let's knock it out. And we've already proposed to put Benton Heights on the CCEP, or we carry over the remaining 1.8 funds into next year, however we handle that. At least we can get one done.
I agree with you in theory. Whether that happens or not is gonna rely on facilities, because stuff like that normally comes out of facilities. And I know we're time sensitive on a lot of that, so I see where you're going.
I agree with Mr. Sides. I think we should, the IP camera, I would say to make sure we had the right number in the budget, that if we add up, take the IP out of it, look at what Benton Heights is, what the delta is, it's 1.6 million. I think we should add the 1.6 million to that 20 million, because that, when you take the carryover 1.8 and add the, not 1.9, add the 1.6, we're at the 3.5 we need. So I would suggest we add 1.6 million into that 20.
Into the budget to cover, specifically to cover the Benton Heights.
You're talking about pulling Benton Heights then off of the CCEP where we propose to move it and put it back into the capital.
Well, we already have
projects.
1.9.
I know, I'm just clarifying what you're saying.
Yes.
Is you want to keep it on the capital outlay proposals for next year and not on the CCP. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree with the IP thing. I just say, let's say, like, call it, Benton Heights Phase 2, put 1.6 million and carry over the 1.9 over.
Can we move on the cameras at the next meeting? We've already got it in the budget. Why does facilities have to sign off on it? We're just moving forward on a project we've already said we were going to do in the budget.
Probably true. We'll talk to Dr. Webb about that, the chair of facilities, and we'll see what happens between those two. How's that? But I think we're on the right track with that. I just don't want to commit right this second to it until I see. I think we're on the right track. All right, where are we? Back to the business at hand.
We are at.
Mr. Karpinski, are we about wrapped it up?
That's where we are, 600,000, scope and mark.
Yes, 600,000. We don't know what projects are gonna be scope changes to. We don't know what market adjustments are gonna be. It's a number there for things that we have dealt with all year this year. Some projects go over, some go under, and we hope to get that funded. The next item is the $2 million for ongoing emerging needs. We've talked about that already. Right. And then you have the estimated brick and mortar for $230,962,322. There is documentation in the packet on that. You have to take the last page, 3 of 3 of the document, add $9 million for furniture and equipment, and that it then becomes $221,962 plus $9 million even equals that $230,962. Then what you have is, and we'll have to document that $9 million on the document that we put in the package tonight. The next part of the package is actually an 8-year plan for capital outlay to include 16-17 through 22-23. And that's showing us that if the bond referendum would pass or the county funded the $230 million, we're still going to need ongoing capital outlay every year. And that amounts to 160 million. Of course, this does include 16-17. So how you get to that is the 20,497,461 times 8 is that 160. Then you have the 16,817, which is simply 8 times that, 2,102,000. And then we also have the 4.8, which represents 600,000 per year of scope and market-driven adjustments. And then the estimated ongoing emerging needs, preventive maintenance, and capital outlay, the emerging needs issue of $2 million a year or 16 million over 8 years. That's that schedule. And that's just giving the county a picture of our future capital needs. And that was something that we learned that we need to make sure they are aware of our needs. And this is this year's attempt at the next year, 8 years of who knows what we need the $16 million for, but it's going to happen. That I'm talking about the ongoing preventive maintenance item, for instance. So with that said, I think I'm a little over the 5 minutes you gave me, but it was the break. That was it.
I have one other item that I need to discuss with everybody. I asked you to bring some dates. I asked you to bring some dates with you. I'm sorry, I didn't turn it on. I see all that going on back there. The commissioners, right after I sent that out, the commissioners sent me, Chairman Rushing sent me some proposed dates that they'd already talked about in hopes that they would mesh with ours. And it looks like among all their dates, while I was taking out graduations and key people not being here and retirement luncheons and things, it looks like May 20th is going to be an available date for us, and July 11th. Does anybody have a big conflict on their schedules with May 20th for the budget conversation and July 11th? I ruled out May 16th, and maybe I shouldn't have, but that being the day after they get our budget and we're still in flux on when that's being sent out, I don't think it would be fair to throw that at them the very next day.
I can't do the 20th. I'll be out of town.
I just arbitrarily took the 20th and July 11th. Does anybody have any issues with that?
I'll be out of town on the 20th.
May the 20th.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can't do the June dates. I'm out of the country.
Okay, so that leaves us with May the 16th again. That's really, I think, putting the screw. Yeah, they did, but I'm not sure that they understood.
Maybe they won't read it by then. They'll just approve it.
They also said before June 8th they wanted to meet, and there's 2 after June 8th dates in there. So,
yeah, good point. So it's a little contradictory, but well, we'll put down May 16th.
Are they looking, is that morning or is that afternoon?
Well, it says 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm hoping it doesn't last that long. And I think between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. is cutting out an awful lot for people that can show up at 6 o'clock in the evening, you know? No, they didn't give us evening times. Now, what we can do is we can go back to them with our proposed schedule too, based on what we all come up with and see if they can be a little flexible. They may well have some. Well, I would think it'd be better for evening for everybody concerned. A lot of people might want to hear what goes on, and between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., there's an awful lot of people left in this country to still work. And the general
Just
public
saying
might-
that that probably will be the night of a county commissioner meeting, the 16th. Just FYI, if you're asking for that night, you're going to be at the meeting.
Well, I mean, we can go back to them with a completely different set of dates and say, this is what's best for us. Can you arrange your schedule to coincide with it? I'm guessing that since they took the time to talk about this and come up with these dates, that they probably don't have a whole lot of flexibility. I mean, I may be wrong.
I'm thinking you're right. Because they're certain.
Well, so do you want to look at May 16th?
Yeah.
As a group?
Yeah.
And would you prefer to put down 6 PM? Is, well, the 16th would be their work session, so by law, do they have to have 2 meetings a month? I thought they only had to have one.
Well, we'll just say the 16th and we can negotiate the time.
All right, should we do that? 16th, negotiate the time. Yeah, during the day is just, I think it's not going to work.
I mean, June dates weren't possible because
I'm out of the country.
Graduations,
Both days.
she's out of the country,
They're right next to each other.
and we have the retirement luncheon during those times, so that's going to eat up a lot of it.
It's a Friday, Monday.
What do you have going on?
Okay.
Well, I know that one of the.
We can throw out any dates we want. I'm just saying that
And we can get a majority of the people there.
I mean, what's the problem with early in July? We've left out the first almost full 2 weeks in July on their schedules.
Which meeting? July, their budget's got to be approved by June.
No, that's the bond.
Oh, the bonds, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's concentrate on the budget first. See if we can come up with some dates on that for us.
So 16th, we're gonna talk about what time of the day?
We can look at that, but I can tell you right now, 8 AM to 3 PM is not going to be a good time span for a lot of people. May 24th?
No, that's before a holiday. That's before Memorial Day. Is it?
Yeah,
The
the
24th
Memorial
of
Day
May?
is the 30th.
No, they don't. That's,
Oh my God. Why are we making this so?
okay, so we're looking at May 16th, but not between 8 and 3, if they can move their meeting. May 24th, and I'm saying after 5 o'clock.
Just gotta make it work.
All right, so I've got 2 dates out there, May 16th after 5, May 24th after 5. May 24th would be our preferable.
I don't know. Well, I'm sure you're not the only one.
I think everybody has a say in this.
I would prefer evening as well.
Sometime after 5, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer 6, but sometime after 5, I guess everybody would prefer. All right, can offer that, certainly.
What'd you say?
Gary was just talking about venue, and I was going to say we could offer this.
All right, before we do that.
You gotta look at the schedule.
This place is booked like wild. John,
And
would
it
you?
will be in May for sure.
Yes. What date do you want him to look?
May 24th, May 16th,
May 16 and 24, what times?
16 is daytime.
after 5.
We can do it. We'll make it happen.
We will,
Well, that's just us. It still has to, we have 5 other people involved.
go ahead and check it out and put a tentative hold on it. And if there are other groups that are already using it, then leave them alone until we know for sure.
Let me ask you this.
Suggestion.
You can do May 16th during the day. Just raise your hand. I'm just trying to. You can't.
I'm good anytime. I think it would
What
be
about you? What about you?
ludicrous to do it
Okay.
during the day, but I'm,
But I mean, those are the dates. I know. Okay, so May 20th, you can't do it all with you guys, right? who else can do May 20th?
What time?
Right, during the day. I'm just asking, because there's 9 people here, other than you. Now, can you do the 20th? You can do the 20th? You can. Okay, June 13th, during the day. Who can do June 13th? So none of us. Okay.
No, none of
So
us
you
are good on
can't-
June 13th and 14th are out.
All right, June 14th is retirement, so we can't do June 14th, right?
You know,
Right? Okay. So right now,
May 24th is looking good.
May 20th, during the day is good for everybody except one person.
Gary's gonna be gone.
I'm gonna be-
Except one person.
Yes.
Well,
Mike can do it during the day.
let's-
You can do it
let's-
during the day.
Let's try to make it happen for everybody if we can, though.
I know, but with 9 people and 5 people, I need to be a little realistic. That's all I'm saying. That's
Well,
all. I'm just saying.
Here's what we
And I know-
do.
and I know
Here's what we
other
do.
county commissioners
Let's
travel-
figure it out for us. Let's figure it out for the 9 of us, and then let's put it to them and see what they come back with. Maybe we'll have to do some negotiating at that point. But right now, I'd like all of us to be there,
I would too.
plain and simple.
Give you the leeway to work on it with them.
As far as the July is concerned, you know what? I don't care if we push that out a little bit. We don't have to make that decision today. Let's try to get this one since it's so hard.
Well, I
Let's-
think we should
Let's try to
plan-
get this budget knocked down.
Well, I think if we plan in July, then people can put it on their calendar.
Yeah.
And it can be. a-
How about July 11? We talked about that.
works for me.
And again, let's talk about after 5 o'clock too. All right. So right now, we're looking at May 16th, if they can arrange their meeting schedule, which I'm going to guess they're going to say no to, and I'm just guessing. So that leaves us with May the 24th. Any assumptions I'm making that are wrong? Okay. I'm done talking at this point. That's what I'll go with, and we'll see what comes back. It may be all screwed up, and they may have valid reasons why they can't do it then. I don't know that. I'm just assuming since they gave us these dates, they're pretty locked in on them. All right. Are there any announcements by any of the committees that need making right now? Then I would like a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.